the United States had undertaken several federal policies, including the treaty period, the removal and relocation period, the reservation period, and even the termination period, all in an attempt to fix the Indian problem, our federal, state, and city elected officials developed an operation for Indian boarding schools. In 1882, as part of the Allotment and Assimilation Act, the first peoples of this land were made to, by law, attend colonial schools. These off-reservation boarding schools took students, more than often forcibly, from their family, their home, and their tribal influences, even children as young as 5 years old. This goal was to fully immerse our relatives, these babies, into mainstream America, leaving any idea or suggestion of these students returning to their indigenous communities behind. Complete assimilation, or kill the Indian, save the man. That was the motto of Captain Richard Pratt, a U.S. Army officer that founded and operated the Carlisle Institute, the first of over 350 boarding schools in America, the land of the free. Based on a military academy, our relatives were forced to wear uniforms. They were given Christian names. Rarely were these children versed in English. However, they were not allowed to speak their native language. Under the threat of physical punishment, their hair was cut, which even today, it is usually only done when we're in mourning. Make no mistakes, ultimately, the boarding school experience was instrumental in the destruction of the traditional Native American families and our ancient culture. Indian boarding schools disrupted our beautiful, harmonious parent-child relationships. Because of the actions of the federal government, our culture and our traditions were not practiced or handed down. That happened for several generations. For those relatives who grew up in boarding schools, they often struggled with bonding with their own children, and they botched the fundamentals of parenthood because the only examples for parenting were the boarding school matrons. The opportunity to create loving, nurturing relationships was physically and literally stripped from our ancestors. In 1888, the Nevada legislature passed a state law that authorized for the sale of bonds to purchase land for an Indian boarding school. Once secured, this land was conveyed to the Bureau of Indian Affairs, which established the boarding school under the guise of educating Indian children. Again, the goal was assimilation. For 90 years, the Stewart Indian School operated in our state, in our capital, Carson City, Nevada. Located 3 miles southeast of the state's government building complex, the school grounds encompass 240 acres. The school opened in 1890 with 37 students from local Washoe, Paiute, and Shoshone tribal nations. The campus was built with a capacity for 100 students and included a Victorian-style wooded frame dormitory and schoolhouse. As enrollment increased, new buildings were built. In fact, during the early years of the school, male students learned stone masonry from their teachers, interestingly, Hopi stone masons, and they constructed over 60 buildings from locally quarried stone. Again, this manual labor was provided by the male students with no compensation. A Virginia and Truckee Railroad stop was established by 1906 to deliver supplies, and to transport students to the campus. By 1919, 400 students attended the school. The curriculum included classes in reading, writing, and arithmetic. That was in the morning. And it focused on vocational training and other service industries for the rest of the day. Boys' classes included farming, ranching, mechanics, woodworking, painting, carpentry, while stereotypically, the girls' classes were baking, cooking, sewing, laundry. Much of the school's operating needs were supplied by the students' labor and their newly acquired skills. Vocational training remained the principal focus until a shift to academics in the late 1960s. This shift was due to a Congressional Commission study of the quality of life of the American Indians, including those in boarding schools. Through the Merriam Report, Americans learned of the dismal living conditions on reservations and in boarding schools, and the federal Indian boarding school era slowly began to change. An attempt was made to ground the school's curriculum in American Indian culture, and after 75 years, it finally became an option for Native Americans to be Native American when surrounded by other Native Americans. Of course, it still had to have the parental oversight of the government. Despite the slow developing humanitarian approach to Indian education, the underpinnings of the Indian boarding school policy were rooted in evil, in racism. It's the resiliency of our people which should garner praise rather than the government's change of focus. Even today, despite the horrendous, unhealthy living conditions, the agonizing separation from family, our Stewart alumni often feel a sense of loyalty to each other. They're connected to this school. However, the United Nations, the most respected, encompassing legal body on the planet, has passed a resolution. It clearly proclaims that the American government's Indian boarding school policy was genocide. The Stewart Indian School closed in 1980 due to a combination of federal budget cuts, earthquake safety, or maybe it was because American social values started to shift. The state of Nevada acquired the campus through several transactions during the 1990s. It's now used as state government offices, including mine, the Nevada Indian Commission. The Washoe Tribe of Nevada and California, the indigenous people of what is now labeled Central West Northern Nevada. They established the Stewart community, a subdivision of housing on part of the former campus. Today, the Stewart Indian School Cultural Center and Museum is in the old administration building. It provides visitors an authentic, first-hand account of the history of boarding schools and the hideous ramification that still reverberate today. Dysfunctional family dynamics, poor performances in public schools, which manifests itself in high unemployment and low socioeconomic status, the loss of native languages, weakened connections to Mother Earth, addiction, and just lost potential. Obviously, Honestly, the Stewart Indian School changed the course of generations of American Indians. For nearly 100 years, American children were removed from their homelands, their families, their culture, with profound impacts on their lives, on my generation, on your generation, on her generation. At this moment, with Holocaust deniers, children in cages at the U.S. political border, and families again torn apart at the hands of the federal government, it's absolutely crucial that we preserve our relative stories, as this resiliency is part of our cultural legacy. We're still here. One of the goals of the Stewart Indian School Cultural Center and Museum is to educate visitors, especially teachers and elected officials, about the experiences of our children, these that were removed from their homelands, their family, their culture, and the aftermath. At the same time, our hearts are breaking as the world is processing the news of over 1,300 sets of children's remains and unmarked graves that have been found in Canadian residential schools. Our Stewart alumni and families recognize that similar death, destruction, and even murder, it happened at boarding schools in the United States, in this country, and at Stewart. After the recent announcement by United States Secretary of Interior Deb Haaland regarding her initiative into boarding schools, our alumni are working with the Nevada Indian Commission to document the names of children, their tribal affiliations, and when they attended the boarding schools. We're working on ways to help the alumni to process their emotions, the intergenerational trauma caused by this news. The goal of our cultural center is to honor the children who attended these schools, to tell the truth, to help our alumni, their families, and their communities to heal. Pisha'u. Ladies and gentlemen, the architect for the entire Awani exhibition and symposium, Vaughn Douglas.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for those strong and powerful words. This is Stacey Montooth. She's the director of the Nevada Indian Commission that oversees the Stewart Indian School. I asked her to come tonight and present this beautiful monologue about the histories of boarding schools, what's going on at Stewart, and the inquiry by Secretary of the Interior Deb Haaland, and how we move forward together. These are painful topics. This is a painful history. This is our Native American history. This is American history. These are histories that we need to talk about. These are things that we need to bring to the surface. All of these topics on boarding schools and the children, the many, many children that are being found all across Canada, have sparked the inquiry into what is happening here in America. There will be more. We all know that there will be more. And having the opportunity to work on this exhibition over the past months, just thinking about, all the ways that we balance as Native women. We balance these histories. We balance how we walk a straight path, knowing about these histories. How do we confront these harms? How do we educate about them? How do we heal ourselves? How do we heal ourselves? I feel like just getting up and being able to greet the sun or being able to see my daughter's face and smile, I feel hopeful. I feel very hopeful because we are the descendants of boarding school survivors. We are the ones that are still here. We are still here. We are learners of our languages. We are keepers of the earth. We are the ones that are, sharing of ourselves and giving of ourselves of all of these stories. And they're hard. These truths are hard. The truth is hard. And it's painful. But we have to bring these things to the surface and keep talking about them. And keep praying for our children and for our elders specifically who are going through this time, recalling all of these stories, because we have elders that are alive today that are recounting these things. And a big part of this night was honoring a certain elder. So Jean LaMarr cannot be with us tonight, but this evening was inspired by her. It was inspired by this artist, this Northern Paiute, from Pit River Paiute tribe, this woman, who's this phenomenal woman, who is an amazing artist and who's been doing things since the 70s. She's been a part of the movement, and I just think she's fantastic. But she's also that storyteller, as Indigenous peoples are storytellers. And with her art, she's been doing an amazing storytelling. So if you're able to visit the exhibition earlier today at the Dawn of Being Gallery, you would see her work and recognize her purple, all these splashes of purple within her print work, within her paintings. And this is a book of her retrospect that's coming up. She's being showcased at the Nevada Museum of Art next year. It would have been earlier, but of course through the pandemic. And some of her artwork, a specific piece that she had called We Danced, We Sang Until the Matron Came, was going to be a performance that she wanted to showcase. But because of any, of course, issues, accessibility issues, the pandemic, decided to table that for a bit, but it's going to be a bigger and more incredible performance at the Nevada Museum of Art in January. So I express to all of you to, keep an eye on the website for the accurate dates and times of that, but it'll be at the end of January. But we still wanted to honor this elder and honor that WESTAF funded this portion of the program so that we could have a performance to bring boarding school stories to light, to be able to showcase the art of this incredible woman and of our people, because this is all of our story. And with her amazing piece of art called We Danced, We Sang Until the Matron Came, she gets to tell her story, the story of her mother as a little girl in boarding school, and having to reclaim that culture, reclaim language and dance and happiness. And being a little girl, as these little Paiute girls were, with their hair cut short, and they would still be singing in Paiute, these beautiful Paiute songs and doing their dances. But then they would hear the matron come, over the wooden floors with their cane, and they would hear it, and they would just stop and then drop down and start scrubbing or, doing what they could again, their chores that they were, required to do as hostage students. And they still kept this resilience. So they still kept this humor, this passion, this hope, and this retention of language through these songs. So I express to all of you to please visit next year in January when Jean LaMarr's performance can be brought to light of We Danced, We Sang Until the Matron Came. But tonight I'm very happy and pleased that we could still maintain a part of the message of the boarding school history and still give to you tonight and share with you our culture in this dance of resilience. Tonight we're going to have 4 performers that are going to be showing, and I'm going to introduce each one. But first we're going to have Shawl Martinez. Shawl Martinez is Southern Cheyenne, Las Vegas Paiute, Moapa Paiute, Pawnee, Muskogee Creek, and she's of Mexican heritage as well. And she's going to be doing a performance of the Jingle Dance. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the Jingle Dance is a gift from the Ojibwe, or the Chippewa. And this dance was created many years ago with the vision. And it's told many different ways, but some of those ways still come to the same finale of either a medicine person having a dream, a vision of being healed, or his daughter was ill and he felt somebody had a dream of this being healed by the sound of the jingle, sound of this dance. And through that dream and through that vision, you know, he's able to see like how the dress should be put together, what kind of sound it would make, how the steps would take place. And so through those steps and through the dance, the sisters lifted her up, and she started to walk, and then she started to move, and then she started to dance. And towards the end of the song, she was healed. And that's what our communities need right now, is this moment of healing. This moment of healing, this moment of community, of togetherness, to be able to dance. Because what a beautiful gift that is. Through boarding schools, we weren't meant to be here. We went through, as Stacey says, a genocide. I wasn't meant to be standing here today. And my daughter, Soul, wasn't meant to be here, as brilliant, as powerful as she is. But we are here. We are here. Beautiful, resilient, always. So without further ado, Soul Martinez. Gianna Yazzie. Gianna Yazzie is also a community member of the Las Vegas Paiute tribe. She also has roots in the Dene Nation, or the Navajo, and she's a fancy shawl dancer, but she's also a jingle dancer. And she's taught native dance classes through the Las Vegas Indian Center, and she lives currently on the Paiute colony. And so when we think about boarding school survival and the histories, like, yes, we have all these ties to different boarding schools, like Soul, myself, to Stewart Indian School, to Carlisle Indian School, to Shalako. And Gina, attended boarding school. So when we think about boarding school reform and all the different ways that it has changed through history, Gina attended Sherman Indian School. So when you think about boarding schools of a thing of the past, it is also still here currently. But today, we have places like Sherman Indian School that are still teaching the cultural ways. Let me back up. Not still, now they are. So over the past few years, they've really embraced cultural identity. They've taught ceramics, weaving, and other beadwork and other different native art practices. They also have a powwow there, which is really amazing. And what she's going to be doing is the fancy shawl dance. So the fancy shawl dance is a dance of emergence. It's meant to be this like flight of a butterfly, and it's really beautifully done. So I want you to all welcome tonight Gianna Yazzie. fancy shawl dance style, but that style of dance that she's doing right now is fancy but crow hop. So there's different styles of fancy shawl. You have the crow hop, you have the straight, and then you have double beat. And tonight we're going to have two variations of that. So Kadie Anderson, my Aunt Kadie, she's going to be dancing tonight, and something I could say about Kadie is just she's an amazing human, and it's really been just really lightens my heart to see her embracing culture. And we did have a moment where we were back to our indigenous language classes. Through COVID, it stopped for a bit because those are our elders. Those are our elders who are sharing the traditions and the languages. And then when things started to calm down a bit, it started to open up. And then Kadie was there with her son Boogie, and learning the language and going over the words, and just seeing the children there, like also learning. They were there and they were taking notes, and it was just really beautiful to see, because I think there is that divide between the generations, where we're losing a lot of this identity, we're losing a lot of language, but also we're reviving those things too. Even by titling, the exhibition Awani, we're holding on to some language. People will remember that. People will remember what that means, what it means to be in balance. And she is also, besides being a language keeper, language learner, mother, she's also an amazing beadwork artist, and embracing an amazing boy, an amazing family. So I'm just proud to know her. And Kadie Anderson is also, her father is a boarding school survivor from Stewart Indian School. She's going to be dancing tonight for her father. Her father, my grandfather, Raymond Anderson, were brothers. So you can see how our family lines are so very close. So it is my honor tonight to introduce Kadie Anderson. Chee-Anderson has been dancing traditional and learning his ways. So locally, we have when I say we, I mean like community, as a Native community. There's a Native dance class. So there's this family, Kariba Bedoni and her family. They're fantastic. They're carriers of the ways, and their entire family teaches the youth how to do fancy, jingle, traditional, all the different dance styles for the men, for the boys, for the young women, grown women, because I definitely took their class before, because I was like, oh, I know how to jingle, but fancy shawl, I just can't get it. But they're really amazing, so I really credit them, the entire Bedoni family, for really, showing the ways, and, really working with our people in so many different facets too. Like Kariba works at the Child Development Center for the tribe, and her family's always been really involved. In fact, my uncle that passed away, Leroy Anderson, Spotted Eagle Hype. He was like their adopted grandfather. And so, that's how deep our communities are. We're family. As Native peoples, Indigenous peoples, you're my brother, you're my sister, you're my auntie. We get together, we just know. There's a knowing between us, a knowing of those ways. And I'm so happy that we get to at least share a little bit of those ways with you tonight. So I'm very proud to introduce this young man who's doing traditional style tonight. Sneak up, Jared Chee-Anderson. It's always a blessing to have our dancers out and having our elders out and to join in this momentous occasion. We would love to have more opportunities like this to share our culture and to be a part of this UNLV community and the Las Vegas arts community as a whole. You know, we have a lot to share. We have a lot to talk about. I feel like with the Iwani exhibition and symposium is a step in the right direction of building these conversations, because we have a long ways to go, especially for visibility for Indigenous people, visibility for our histories, for what's going on currently, and who we are in the contemporary. So with this, I wanted to, also thank the sponsors. I wish I would have brought the list out. I didn't want to bring my phone out. But there were many, and we have them all listed on our website. We had over 20 different sponsors. From the UNLV Department of Art, the College of Fine Arts, the History Department, the Anthropology Department, the American Indian Alliance, the Native American Club, Alumni Club, excuse me. We also have the Black Mountain Institute, Meow, Nevada Humanities, WESTAF. WESTAF is a big catalyst of this performance here tonight, and so many others. So I want you to, go ahead and look at the website to see all the different, facets of this amazing undertaking that is Iwani. And please visit the exhibition too. It's going to be up until December 10th. Please bring your families. I'm there on Mondays and Wednesdays from 9 to 2 p.m. So if you want to go with a guided tour, drop in around that time. I'm definitely there. But I also want to bring out Stacey Montooth and the rest of the performers for a final bow. Would you please join me?